You know, there's a kind of pain that doesn't come from wounds or words. It comes from knowing. You can't explain it easily. You just feel everything. You feel people's smiles and know they're lying. You feel the silence in a room louder than the words being spoken. You meet someone for the first time, and your body already knows their story, even before they've said a single thing. If you're still here, it's probably because you've felt this too, and you've asked yourself more than once, why? Why am I the one who feels so deeply? Why do I absorb everyone's energy like a sponge? Why do I cry for someone else's pain before they even admit they're hurting? Why do I walk away from a room more exhausted than when I walked in, like I've just carried everyone else's emotions on my back? Let me tell you something that might change your life. If you feel what others hide, you're not broken, you're chosen. You are what I call an empath chosen one. And though it feels like a curse, it is in truth a rare and sacred gift. But like all divine gifts, it comes wrapped in pain. You weren't meant to fit into the world. You were meant to feel it, to heal it, to mirror it back to itself. And that's why life has never felt simple for you. That's why you've been overwhelmed, misunderstood, drained, and sometimes even ashamed of your sensitivity. Because you've been taught that feeling too much is weakness. But what if it's the opposite? What if your sensitivity is actually your soul's superpower? Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt someone's grief, even though they were smiling? Have you ever touched someone's hand and felt a wave of sadness that wasn't yours? Have you ever avoided crowds not because you dislike people, but because you can't not feel them? That's not just intuition, that's absorption. That's spiritual frequency reception at the highest level. You're not just observing the world, you're living inside its emotional field. You are a mirror to its joy, its trauma, its unspoken truth. But here's where it gets hard, and here's where most people don't understand us. When you feel what others hide, you also carry what others refuse to confront. You feel their rage when they suppress it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You feel their heartbreak when they pretend to be happy. You feel their shame, their fear, their inner child's silent screams, and you carry it in your nervous system like it's your own. The body doesn't know the difference between your pain and someone else's. When you're an empath, that's why it's so important to learn how to discern, how to protect, how to release, because if you don't, you'll spend your entire life being a dumping ground for other people's emotional bag. But wait, don't close your heart. This isn't about building walls, this is about building filters, because as an empath, your heart is not the problem, it's the solution. The goal is not to feel less, it's to feel clearly, to feel without drowning, to sense without suffering, to hold space without losing yourself in the shadows you're trying to illuminate. Let me ask you something that no one else dares to ask. What if your greatest pain has always been your greatest preparation? What if the reason you've been through so much is because your soul needed to understand the landscape of human emotion, not from theory, but from experience? You had to feel abandonment so you could recognize it in others. You had to taste betrayal so you could spot it behind polite masks. You had to carry loneliness so deep that it echoed in your bones, so that when someone else walks into your life with that same ache, You don't just sympathize, you know, you see them. And that is the sacred power of the empath. We are the ones who sit in silence with the brokenhearted. We are the ones who feel the tremble in a voice and know what it took for that person to speak. We are the ones who can't look away from suffering, not because we're addicted to pain, but because we understand that pain is the birthplace of transformation. But let's not romanticize it. Being an empath isn't just beautiful, it's brutal. You will be drained, you will be used, you will be misunderstood. People will project onto you the very emotions they refuse to face. You will become their mirror, and when they don't like what they see, they might shatter you instead. So how do we survive this? How do we not only carry this gift, but master it? First, we must reclaim our energy. You have to stop apologizing for needing space. You have to stop explaining why you leave early, why you don't answer every call, why you need silence more than stimulation. That's not weakness. That's maintenance. That's spiritual hygiene. You need to create rituals that ground you. You need to cleanse your field with daily intention, with breath, with solitude. You need to learn how to release emotions that aren't yours. Because if you don't, you'll start to carry the entire world's pain and forget who you are beneath it all. And second, you have to stop rescuing everyone. Listen closely here. You are not here to save people from their pain. You are here to hold space for them to rise through it. There is a difference. You can love people fiercely and still walk away when they refuse to grow. You can witness someone suffering and still let them walk their own path. Empathy does not mean self-sacrifice. It means soul connection without soul annihilation. You must become strong in your boundaries, not as walls, but as sacred agreements. You are not a doormat for trauma. You are not a therapist for the world. You are a channel for divine insight, and part of that insight is knowing when to step back so someone else can step up. And third, perhaps most importantly, you must learn how to feel without fusing. Just because you sense what others hide doesn't mean you have to become it. Just because you absorb energy doesn't mean you have to store it. Feel it, name it, bless it, and then release it. That is the practice of the empowered empath. So, let me ask you one final question before we continue. What would your life look like if you stopped carrying what was never yours to hold? What would your spirit feel like if it were finally free to feel without drowning? What would happen if your empathy became your strength, not your suffering? Because that's where we're headed next. There comes a moment in every empath's journey that feels like a storm nobody else can see. It doesn't show up on weather maps, but it rages inside your chest like a hurricane of unspoken truths, unresolved grief, and energies that aren't even yours. You smile in public, but your nervous system is screaming. You go through the motions, but your soul is slowly collapsing. And the worst part, no one around you even notices. Because you've been trained to hold their pain so well, you forgot how to hold your own. This is the silent breakdown, and if you've been there or you're in it, you need to hear this. Your breakdown is not proof that you're weak. It's proof that you've reached the edge of your current identity. You're not unraveling into nothing. You're unraveling into truth. And that it's sacred. You see, for most of us empaths, especially the chosen ones, We've lived for years, sometimes decades, as energetic refugees. We migrate from one emotional battlefield to another, often unconsciously, picking up the pieces of other people's pain like it's our job. We do it in friendships, in family dynamics, in romantic relationships. We become the emotional anchors, the peacemakers, the listeners. But who listens to us? Who holds us when we break? Who heals the healer? And that's the moment when you're lying on the floor, emotionally exhausted, spiritually dehydrated, and mentally scattered, that your real journey begins. Because it's only when we reach the bottom of borrowed pain that we realize most of what we've carried never belonged to us in the first place. Let me ask you something that might sting. How much of your identity is built on managing other people's discomfort? How many times have you shape-shifted to make someone else feel safe? How often have you silenced your truth because someone else couldn't handle it? How often have you stayed in relationships, jobs, circles, because you felt responsible for their emotional well-being? We're not just feeling what others hide, we're often hiding ourselves, so we don't disturb their illusions. That's why the breakdown is so necessary. It's the soul's way of saying no more. No more being the emotional landfill for people who refuse to face themselves. No more shrinking your light so others can stay asleep. No more confusing compassion with codependency. No more mistaking empathy for martyrdom. When the storm comes, it will strip you bare. It will take away the roles you've played, the masks you've worn, the coping mechanisms you've called personality. You'll feel lost. You'll question everything. You'll wonder if you're going crazy. But you're not. You're waking up. Spiritual awakening for the empath is not gentle. It's not a soft whisper. It's a lightning strike. Why? Because we've built entire lives on emotional architecture that wasn't designed to hold our truth. And when the storm hits, it doesn't just remove the surface, it redesigns the foundation. You'll start to notice things. Subtleties you once ignored will become impossible to unsee. That friend who always drains your energy with their drama, you'll feel physically sick after talking to them. That job that never aligned with your soul, you'll dread every morning like it's a slow death. That relationship where you've been overgiving and undervalued, you'll feel like you're disappearing inside of it. And here's the thing, you can't numb it anymore. You can't fake it anymore. You can't unfeel what your soul is showing you. The storm has made it impossible. You've outgrown the version of yourself who could tolerate misalignment. That's the painful gift. You now know too much, and knowing requires change. So what do we do when we reach this point? First, we must allow the storm to pass through us, not destroy us. You're not dying, you're detoxing. The anxiety, the overwhelm, the tears, the sudden bursts of rage or grief, they're not signs you're broken. They're signs you're releasing what was never yours. Let it move, let it purge, cry, scream, journal, sit in silence, dance, fast, meditate, whatever it takes. Just don't suppress it. Feel it fully so it can leave fully. Second, begin to separate your truth from others' projections. This is crucial. As empaths, we've been trained to internalize other people's emotions as our responsibility. But not everything you feel is yours to fix. Not everything you sense is yours to carry. You must become a master of energetic discernment. Try this practice. The next time you're overwhelmed, pause and ask yourself, is this mine? Breathe, listen. Your body knows, your energy knows. If it's not yours, visualize it leaving. Release it with love. If it is yours, sit with it. Ask what it's trying to teach you. Empathy isn't just about feeling, it's about listening. Third, you must rebuild your life around your real self. The self that's been buried under years of emotional labor, people-pleasing, and spiritual bypass. The self who knows what peace feels like. The self who doesn't need to be everything for everyone. The self who is sacred, sovereign, and enough. This might mean walking away from people who aren't ready to meet you at your level of depth. It might mean disappointing those who are used to you being their emotional crutch. It might mean being called selfish, cold, distant, but you must ask yourself, do I want to be liked or liberated? Because here's the paradox, the more you honor your boundaries, the more your empathy becomes clean. When you're no longer carrying emotional toxins, your compassion becomes clear, your intuition sharpens, your energy heals, not through exhaustion, but through presence. You become medicine, not because you're trying, but because you finally you don't have to save everyone. You're not here to absorb the world's wounds like a sponge. You're here to transmute energy, not trap it. You're here to feel, not to fuse. You're here to mirror truth, not to mask yours. And slowly, day by day, you'll notice something miraculous. The storm begins to clear. You wake up and feel yourself again, not the version of you that was overloaded, overextended, and overwhelmed, but the version of you that is clear, centered, calm, the true empath, the chosen one. Not because you're special, but because you finally chose yourself. You'll begin to trust your sensitivity again, not as a liability, but as a compass. You'll walk into rooms and feel everything, but this time, you'll know what's yours and what's not. You'll still cry when the world hurts, but you'll also dance when the world heals. And your energy will no longer be the dumping ground, it will be the sanctuary. So let me ask you this, what if the storm wasn't breaking you, but breaking you open? What if this pain is not the end, but the beginning of your real life? What if you were never meant to carry the world, but to illuminate it? Because the storm doesn't come to destroy the empath, it comes to purify them. And when it passes, what remains is not weakness, but wisdom. The painful gift of the empath chosen one. Feeling what others hide. When we begin to rebuild after the storm, something miraculous takes root inside of us. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, like the first light after a long, dark night. It's the realization that your pain, your breakdown, your emotional overload, it wasn't just something to survive, it was your initiation. You see, empathy is not the end of our journey, it's the beginning of our transformation. Once we stop seeing our sensitivity as a wound and start honoring it as a tool, we begin to shift. We stop being emotional sponges and become emotional alchemists. We learn to take in energy, transmute it, and return it to the world as wisdom, love, clarity, and power. This is the sacred art of emotional alchemy, and it starts with one radical shift. We stop asking, why do I feel this? And start asking, what do I want to create with this? That's the turning point right there. As empaths, we've been taught to be reactive, to brace ourselves for the next emotional wave, to survive other people's energy like it's a storm we can't escape. But what if we were never meant to just survive it? What if we were meant to shape it? When we begin to see ourselves not just as feelers, but as filters, we begin to reclaim our inner power. We become portals through which energy is transformed. Someone walks into the room with anxiety, we meet it with calm. Someone brings fear, we respond with presence. Someone hides their brokenness, we offer silent understanding. We no longer absorb, we transmute, but to do that, we have to stop fearing our feelings. We have to stop running from our sensitivities. We have to stop apologizing for our depth. Your ability to feel what others hide is not a burden, it's a torch. It illuminates what is unconscious, unspoken, and unloved. And when you shine that light without judgment, you become a force of healing that shifts every room you walk into without saying a word. But that kind of presence requires training. It requires practice. It requires discipline. The empath's gift is not in feeling everything, it's in deciding what to do with what you feel. So, let's get practical. One of the most powerful tools you can develop is what I call energetic sovereignty. This is the ability to feel without fusing, to notice without absorbing, to witness without carrying. It's the subtle but profound art of being in the presence of intense emotional energy without losing yourself in it. It starts with awareness. Throughout the day, check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? Then go deeper. Is this mine? If it's not, release it. You don't need a ritual, just intention, just breath, just truth. Say it to yourself like a mantra. I release what is not mine. I return to myself now. Then take it further. Ask, if this emotion had a message, what would it be? Listen deeply. Empaths are not just feelers, they are interpreters. You're sensing energy that most people bury. It's your gift to give it voice, not to shame it, but to understand it. And here's the most transformative part. Once you understand it, you get to choose how to respond. That's where the power lives. That's where the alchemy begins. Let's say you walk into a space and feel tension. Old you would absorb it, internalize it, carry it home. New you breathe into it, you name it. You hold it in your awareness like a sculptor holds clay. You don't take it in, you transform it. You ground yourself, you speak peace, you radiate stillness, and suddenly the tension starts to dissolve. Not because you fixed it, but because your presence shifted the field. That's not magic. That's energy. That's mastery. That's the empath stepping into their true role as a frequency leader. Now, here's something else no one tells us. Empathy must be balanced. If you only feel outward, only for others, you will burn out. You must also feel inward. You must develop empathy for yourself. This is where self-compassion becomes non-negotiable. You can't be a lighthouse for others if your own foundation is crumbling. You need to treat yourself like the sacred being you are. That means rest is not optional. Boundaries are not optional. Saying no is not optional. Your sensitivity is a divine instrument, and it must be tuned, protected, and honored. Let me ask you something. If your heart were a temple, how would you treat it? Would you let just anyone walk in with muddy boots? Would you let them scream and throw their pain around? Or would you protect that space, clean it daily, fill it with light and silence and reverence? That's what your life must become. A living temple, a space where your energy is clear, your emotions are honored, and your boundaries are sacred. And here's where the Empath Chosen One truly begins to rise. When you've done the work, when you've faced your inner storm, reclaimed your energy, and mastered the art of transmutation, you become something rare. You become a seer, a healer, a mirror that doesn't just reflect pain, but reflects truth, clarity, light. You start to feel what isn't being said, and instead of drowning in it, you hold space for it to emerge. You start to sense the energy behind the words, and you meet it with wisdom, not reaction. You become the person people come to, not because you fix them, but because they feel safe to unfold in your presence. And remember this, true empaths don't rescue, they remind. They remind others of their own light, their own power, their own capacity to heal. That's the highest expression of empathy, not carrying someone else's pain, but guiding them back to their own strength. And when you live like that, something wild happens. You stop being drained. Why? Because you're no longer leaking energy. You're no longer carrying what isn't yours. You're no longer abandoning yourself to save others. Your empathy is no longer a bleeding wound, it's a beating drum. A rhythm that aligns you with divine synchronicity, soul-aligned people, and profound purpose. So let me ask you, right now, what would it feel like to stop being a sponge and start being a mirror? What would it feel like to let go of emotional survival and step into spiritual leadership? What would it feel like to trust your empathy, not as a curse, but as a compass? Because the world doesn't need more numbness. It doesn't need more pretending. It needs you, the true you, the clear you, the empowered empath who has walked through fire and come out with light in their eyes and wisdom in their voice. And that is what we're here to become.